Hey guys, I hope it's working. Um, Hold on, let me just be right back for just a second. I think I'm still in airplane mode and I'm on the Wi-Fi, but I'm gonna just switch off here for a second. Stand by, stand by. Jillian, hey, come back in 2 minutes. I'm gonna check my phone. Oh, or maybe I could just like go. Okay, okay, I'm on now, cellular data and Wi-Fi, so that's great. Um, I see Jillian's watching, and it's really exciting because Jillian's going to be in our academy in about 1 hour. But anyway, I'm back up in South Carolina. Obviously, I'm in the log cabin in the woods, and yeah, I've been in like a teaching whirlwind over Thanksgiving. I taught a lot in Wisconsin and Northern Illinois, and now this last weekend I was at Teresa Schaefer's in Knoxville. I am home, yay, all week, which has been really, really, really fun, and I'm really enjoying that. Got the big doctor's appointment tomorrow, so everything so far is really good and really fun to check in with all my clients. And Jess, who's my trainer here over the wintertime, she's doing great. And yeah, this weekend I'm going to Atlanta, down to the beautiful Shannondale Farm. Thank you to Abby Krupa, who is a trainer in the academy. And she was like, please come to Atlanta. And I'm like, okay. So that's going to be really fun. And before I get into, I just want to give you a little heads up on what we're going to chat about tonight. Because I've been teaching so much, I've got all these like different thoughts and what should I talk about? And yeah, so the word I kind of came up with like like the top, I mean, not really, it's like the top 15, but like 15 important concepts to make sure you have in balance is kind of the real like topic tonight. And I just kind of like whipped up these 15 and I counted them out and I'm like, ooh, it's kind of a long, it's kind of a long list. But you know, just like over just the weeks of teaching, right? Like I was in Germany and I was in my German cocoon of learning, and I call it the German basement because it was like legit the German basement. I lived in a basement. And but I was like in this cocoon, like I went inside for like deep growth and learning. And I really kind of felt like most of the time that like I sucked. And then I got back and I was like processing all the things because I really do quite well, like having information and then going home and processing it and making it my own, right? Or like my brain is in a way that I've like taken clinics and then I like have to process it and make it my own. So like having everyday help was something that like I needed to like adjust to and probably get better at. But you know, it was like all these things that I haven't been teaching so much. I mean, I teach through the academy and it's amazing because I teach all over the world. I teach in Norway and Israel and Canada, and it's so cool. Like, I'm so proud of the academy. And I got my little academy cup here. So, because of course it's a wine about it Wednesday, but I don't drink wine anymore. So I've got some sparkling water in there, but I love the cup. And yeah, the good news is about the academy is if you would like to join, the doors are open. We now are just open for whenever you want to join, you can. And you're really missing out if you're not an apprentice or a trainer, because tonight with Jillian, it's going to be an awesome lecture about why it's important to put the horse on the bit and developing the eye. So when you look at horses or you look at pictures or videos, like you're going to have like an idea of like how to analyze what's right, why is it right, what's wrong, why is it wrong, because it's really confusing out there, like what's right, you know. So we're going to have our functional equine expert, and she's going to, you know, just walk us through different pictures. There's some pictures of me. I think we might have some other pictures, good, the bad, the ugly. We're just going to discuss it because, our goal at the Team Tate Academy is to help you, learn about, what are the correct principles, and how to apply that on your horse at home. And like if your trainer doesn't have a lot of time to give you lectures, you can listen to ours. And we just want to help you at home train your horse. And, it's not like I didn't make it up. I've had really great teachers, and I'm just like the vehicle for the information. So check out Team Tate Academy because it's really fun and it's such a great like-minded community. And we've got some exciting things, got some special new ideas and things with Charles that I think you guys will find really exciting coming soon. So stay tuned for that too. And so tonight, like I just, I haven't been teaching a lot because I was in Germany learning myself. Like I became the student. And so that was a lot. And I like I said, like I did teach through Zoom and FaceTime, which is like amazing. The technology nowadays is like amazing. But I've been like on tours, like there's been so much like teaching. Like I think at the Atlanta clinic at Shannondale, I think I have like 14 lessons a day. So it's like really fun to like create the situation where you can just like put the principles to work, right? And so it's been a lot of lessons, and I just started thinking about like, what to talk about. And there's so many things, like I just feel like I'm just bubbling with different ideas, especially after Germany, and just like, wow. And of course, always, if you guys have a specific topic you want to hear me chat about, you're more than welcome to drop me a message, whatever, drop it here, wherever you want. We will get it. And so, you know me, I'm always happy to chat about anything. But I really came up with like 15 things that you can check on for balance, right? Like we always talk about balance, and I did also a lecture in the academy about balance. And of course it isn't just like one-dimensional things, and I've gotten a wonderful opportunity to ride with Susanna Van Dietz, who's like a soul sister to me. Like I love her, and I love her teaching, and she always it's hard and it's really challenging, but she always like brings deeper levels of epiphanies to my riding inside myself, right? Like my coaches and my trainers are always telling me things, and like Susanna's like able to like put it into like my body, and then she puts it in a way that I can remember it and then like make it my own. So that's been pretty exciting. And she always talks about like one of the reasons why, she calls her program, like balance in motion, right? And it's just like, because you never land on one thing. And I've been talking about this in all the lessons I've been teaching in one way or another, right? Like we always want to feel like I finally got the frame I need to ride him in. Okay. I'm supposed to ride him more down. He needs to be rounder in the neck and rounder in the back and like lower in the neck. Okay. My coach told me that, and I got it rounder. And then you do a good job, and then you come back 2 months later, and the trainer's like, you got to ride him up. You got to ride him up. Casey, this should sound familiar because you were actually the last lesson I taught before I came down here, of like, well, now he needs to be like back up, and carry himself in a higher, like from his sternum and thoracic sling, and carry himself like up and framed up. And we just kind of started talking and a little bit laughing about, well, am I supposed to ride him down or am I supposed to ride him up? Like what am I supposed to do with the frame? And I remember this distinct, like frustrating, sad moment for me, when I was like, Charles, where am I supposed to ride the neck? And he's like, you must ride the neck in any shape, in any, frame, in any speed, in any gait, and then you have the horse on your aids. And I was like, no, I need you to tell me exactly where I'm supposed to put it. And he's like, you shall put it in all the places. And I'm like, This is not a moment I need the Karate Kid, you know, like wax on, wax off kind of lesson. I need you to just tell me where am I supposed to put his neck, you know? And again, it was like the master training the pupil of like, you shall put the neck in all the locations. And I was just like, it's so hard, you know? But that's like, we have to respond to like every new information, right? And so I started writing down like what all needs to be balanced, you know? And I came up with 15, and there's probably a lot more. But these are the things I came up with. So, of course, there's always this thing, especially coming home from Germany, right? And like Americans for sure, you know, I've always been told like we ride with the handbrake on, and we ride a little backwards thinking and like over controlled. And I mean, I was doing the same thing. Michael, like if I had $1 every time he was like, stop holding him, or stop pulling, or stop holding, or like just let him go, more freedom, let him go, more forward. And like Eula, the first time around I went to Europe, he was always like, Jessica, more activity. You know, it was like always just like get more going on, right? More swing, all the things. And, you know, I think that becomes a little bit of a difficult thing with like what's forward and what's like running, right? So that's like we need energy, but we don't need speed. And I think that's always something to sort of check. Like, especially if you have a horse that's like running and always wants to be a bit fast, it's easy to then get like holding it back, you know, and then you're just kind of like hovering around this like small space, like bringing the horse back to your comfort zone, right? And that's not a great idea. We have to like grow ourselves because of course it's a riding sport and not a horsing sport, like Charles always says. So it's not that we need to bring the horse back to our level and our comfort zone. We have to every day reach am I, and that doesn't mean never slow down to learn to sit the trot. Like, of course, sit the trot and learn that. But then find like where you can bring the horse like back up out of himself. And I think because throughness is something that's a little bit elusive, like throughness and self-carriage, I feel is a little bit misinterpreted, as well as like contact, which don't get me started on that. And so a lot of times we're a little bit holding too much, and then we're like running them too fast, but because they're a bit strong in the hand, they're kind of just like flat and running. And so that's why like my new mantra after coming home from Germany was like up and swinging, you know, like can I trot around and like get the horse to be like pulling his like torso and not letting his torso like land like heavily on the front legs, you know? So there's definitely a difference between forward and running, you know? And I think that's something to really like always check on, like oops, you know, and that's okay if like the horse is a little bit behind you and you have to like get going and like make it go and then find the swing again, right? Like you need energy in the horse to shape the energy, right? But the energy can't be frenetic and like you know, like tight, right? Because that doesn't feel great either, to exercise in a hectic, tight way, right? Like what is that doing to our joints or our muscles if we're like you know, and then we're being like pushed around to like go faster, right? Like does the more energy change the swing of the gait, or is he now just in the same shape, running in a not great shape? Is he just running faster, right? So I think that's always something really interesting to ask yourself. Like, am I going forward, or am I rushing, or am I running? Is the horse swinging, or is he like tight and choppy and fast? So that was the number one thing that I think we should always check on. What's your balance between, you know, going somewhere but not running somewhere? Okay. So number two, is along with the whole frame conversation, right? Like the whole idea of like up and like crested up to the bit versus just inverted and like above the bit. I'm sure you guys have seen the webinar that went around that we did, and Montana, God love him, but he is the example of the like braced neck, you know. And we talk about like how you can get your horse on the bit, and it's a free webinar, and it was really fun to do. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Share it with your friends. We talk about 3 different horses and 3 different pretty popular choices from the horse about like behind the vertical, posing in the neck, and then above the bit, you know. And on my videos, I talk through like how we fix and how we help those. But this whole idea of like, oh, I'm supposed to ride the pole like up, get his ears up, get him like out of the base of his chest, you know, like don't let him just fall down in the bottom of his neck. But then it's easy to get like, I must ride it up. And then the horse is like dropped in the back, locked in the wither, bulging out the bottom of the neck, and like up in the pole, right? The pole is up. Judges would be happy because the pole is up, right? But you lose a little bit this roundness, right? And so we have to really think about like, am I riding the horse in the right kind of frame and not like pulled up or like jerked up, and you know, finding the right frame for your horse, right? So that easily goes into number 3, which is about the balance of finding, you know, do I want the horse rounder and over the back and a little bit deeper and rounder, and then am I just merely putting it on the front end, right? Am I dropping its weight onto the front legs, into the chest, into my hand, you know? And I want you guys to Google. I don't know if you can find it. Isabel Worth, like she can canter pirouette a horse with the head like way down by the knees, right? Like it is down and round and over the back and soft in her hand. And she's canter pirouetting and the head is like way down, right? And she's super light in the contact. And so that's down in the neck, but not on the forehand, right? And so there's that balance of, can I shift the horse's chest back into the hind legs, but can I let its neck like round up over the chest, right? We talk a lot about, you know, keeping the horse's chest back into his hips, bringing the hind feet farther under the body, right? Taking the hind fetlocks up towards the bit, in that direction, right? But keeping the chest back so he's not barging forward through the chest. But there's also this like waterfall feeling you need at the wither, over the neck, over the pole, into the hand, and a positive connection. So again, there's like this balance of like, is the horse round and deep enough in the bascule of his body, or is he just like on the forehand, right? And so it's always like this balance, and that's the thing. Like Susanna always talks about, like if you're trying to balance even your own position, right? It's never like I have found the perfect spot and now I must stay right here because I'm in the perfect spot. Because it's dynamic, like it's constantly moving. Like even on your yoga mat, practicing yoga moves, like the earth is still rotating on its axis, right? And you're like losing your balance and the mat is not moving, the floor is not moving, right? Like it's pretty stable and it's still like, whoa, whatever tree pose, right? You're still like, oops, I'm like wobbling around, and it's like, imagine someone on your shoulders and you're trying to do these yoga poses, right? And now you're like, oh my God, like I'm out of balance. This person's throwing me out of balance. Like everything's out of balance, right? And so it's always about creating the freedom to move within it, right? And being absolutely okay with and actually expecting you to constantly be straddling these two sides, right? Like, is he round enough? Oops, is he on the forehand? Is he high enough? Oops, is he inverted? Am I going forward enough? Oops, is he running? And it's not like one or the other. It's like you have to just get used to it's in constant change. It's in constant flux, right? This balance isn't something like this is the way every time, right? It's like it's always these little adjustments, these micro movements, that like eventually it looks like you're doing nothing, but you're in that flow between the balances of these things. And of course, like, it needs to be perfect balance, right? But like perfect doesn't exist, but like while we're on that way towards perfection, which of course we never arrive at, we certainly get excellent on the way, right? So these are some of the categories we're talking about. Number 4, because, we talk about all the things at these clinics. And so another thing I wrote down was the balance between being a leader and being bossy, right? Like horses are looking for leaders. How we interact with our horse is totally related to like where else does that show up in our life, right? Like, do I show up the same in my house, in my family, in my job, with does my horse like run all over the top of me? Like, am I a doormat in my life? This horse gets a lot of confidence from me and leadership from me. Am I like that in my job, right? Like, look at those things and ask yourself the hard questions. And, we have to be a leader and we have to like step forward and be like in charge, right? But then it's like, you don't want to be like the bossy, right? And like mean and like, I'm going to tell you what to do every single step, right? It's like, I need to lead you. And sometimes that's from the front and sometimes that's from the back. And again, that's that straddling of that balance line. What's enough leadership? What becomes bossy, right? Because just like any horse, right? Like any person in a job doesn't want to be like bossed around all the time, right? So you have to also think about like, are my requests to the horse from a leadership place? Or am I like am I bossing him around? Am I telling him what to do all the time, right? Because that just breeds resentment and earmuffs, right? He's going to be like, I'm stop listening to you because all you do is talk to me all the time with your busy legs, right? So we have to learn that silence as well. So ask yourself, like, am I a good leader? Do I let him sometimes make a mistake and then correct the mistake? Or am I afraid of the mistake and I just like override everything to like prevent the mistake? Am I always at him and telling him what to do? Like, don't do that. Don't spook, and like, think about like, can I tell the horse what to do and not what not to do? But like in a coaching way, in a positive leadership format, and of course we need to offer, isometric resistance and hold against the horse when it's the wrong answer and make the wrong answer uncomfortable, pressure, release of pressure. But like, we always want to be fair, So I think about that balance between leadership and being bossy, right? So number 5, of course, becomes this idea of, posture, like up on the bit versus stretching. Again, like Michael Klemke, it was an amazing, awesome summer. So great. I mean, and fall, because I was there for like almost 8 months. So it was long. It was like in deep down in the German basement of the cocoon of growth. And we do a lot of stretching. There is a lot of walking on the buckle. There's a lot of stretching. And so you also like, I see a lot of people just get on and start walking and the thing is like on the bit, like, and like, that's not great really for anyone's muscles, right? Like, we need to allow the fascia to get oxygen. So it needs to be changing, right? Charles always talks about the accordion, right? Can I stretch it? Can I bring it back? And so again, there's this balance of like, when the horse doesn't know it, yes, we have to spend a little bit more time kind of exaggerating it, right? Like if you have a horse that like high and tight in the neck, it has to go long and down. And then it learns that, and then you got to put it back up again, right? And then you got to find eventually, like, where's my balance point? Where's the middle piece? But can I expose the horse to its limits on either side of that? You know, how, you know, again, to the 3 channels. If you don't know what I'm referring to, join the academy as an apprentice, and you can watch that. You can watch that lecture about the 3 dials. You know, but like that accordion of like, can I stretch the horse long and down, and can I bring it back up to posture, right? And like, what is the balance for every horse? Some horses need 70% of the time stretching and only 30% like up on contact. Others need like a little bit longer time learning to like carry their sternum and engage their thoracic sling and like carry themselves up. But then those postural muscles need a rest, right? And so we have to find again like that balance between riding up on the contact, show frame, if you want to call it, stretching the horse's boundaries of how close are you to Levad today? I'm still 5 years out. Like, okay, then release and stretch, right? So that's another balance we need to always find. Like, we're always constantly straddling these lines, right? And we need to decide, how long do I need to stay on either side, right? And of course, like, there's always this feeling of suppleness that has to just exist in the middle. And of course, suppleness is strength, you know. So on to the next one, which is, I like this one too, because again, coming home, I was processing so much. And it was so much about watching Michael's legs. I'm like, what are your legs doing? And it's kind of like nothing. Everyone's sitting so still. And so I was like, I am not sitting still. So what's happening? But again, we can't be stiff sitting still. But again, this number 6 is aiding versus silence, right? Like everybody on the planet's like, my horse doesn't listen to my aids. He's behind my leg. And I'm like, that's because your leg is, number 1, probably back too far on his body. And number 2, it's incessantly speaking to him. So in order for him to listen, when you want him to actually hear you, you got to stop talking in between the aids, right? And so there's again this balance of am I talking? Am I quiet? Did he listen? Did I get a response? Right? And so it's just like Charles talks about this in music, in Dressage Principles Illuminated, which is the best book in the whole entire world. Get it? There's a new edition. It's amazing. It's my Bible. I love it. But he always talks about the notes in a piece of music are as important as the moments of silence. Okay, let's just let that seep into you for a second, right? Music becomes more powerful, not because the notes are constantly bomb, bomb, coming at you. It's the moments that it gets quiet. And then you wait for the music to begin again. And then it's quiet. And then the music begins. And all of a sudden you're pulled in because of the quietness, right? And so you can think a little bit about your aids. If you want them to be able to listen to you better, we have to find the silence, right? And we can't even really tell if he listened. If we aid and then keep aiding, we can't even tell if he listened to the first one because we already did 10. So that's hard. I'm not saying that's easy, right? I've been riding a lot of horses for a lot of times, a lot of levels, a lot of sizes, shapes for lots of horses, a lot. And I'm still working on that, right? But it's again, we don't get better if we don't work on these things. Another thing I think, again, finding always the balance is a little bit goes into the leadership bossy part. Is pushing versus guiding, right? There's so many times I'm hey, can you leg yield him? And then I see my rider I'm gonna push him over there. And I'm okay, whoa. He yes, we need to train the cue, what this means. We can do that on the ground. We can do it all kinds of ways. But it's also about like, can I guide them there? Like, can my energy, like horses are such energetic beings, like set forth the intention. And instead of always thinking you need to push them over there, think about guiding them. And like, what are the balance of your aids? Am I always pushing, or could I guide him a little bit more? Right? So we got to find that balance between those things also. Ooh, this is a good one. So number 8 is recognizing weakness versus, well, and like diagnosing soreness or lameness, right? So every horse on the planet looks lame, right? When you know what you're looking at, and you can tell, and it's not like lame like limping, but you can identify immediately the body parts that like aren't going so great. And the right hind leg tends to be that, and they kind of escape either out the left shoulder, or when you're going left, sometimes they run out the right shoulder. But typically it's that right hind leg that tends to be a little bit stiffer. Sometimes the left hind leg is a little bit shorter stepping, blah, blah, blah. We talk about that all the time, straightness and alignment and all those things. But it's also interesting, right? Like what is weakness versus actual soreness, right? And so we have to find the balance of what needs to get more work and what needs to get the vet, right? And so there's a lot of times there's like unlevelness in the pelvis, or high-low up front, or there's just like a weird mechanic going on in the body. And like good riding can take care like a ton of that, but it's about being able to like recognize what's happening, why is it happening, how does this transfer up into his shoulders and into my hand. But I think not all weaknesses is lameness, and not all weaknesses needs the vet. But I do think also like many like resistances could maybe need the vet, right? Like I just saw this thing on Facebook that it was like, ooh, like 15 ways to tell if your horse is lame. And it was like all these like naughty behaviors. And it's like, duh, it was just like, we can make a thing on that. Like, okay, like a lot of times we're like, he's just not listening, or he doesn't want to do this. And it's like, I think his stifle's sore, or a front foot, or he doesn't want to canter on that lead because that foot, or like whatever. But I do think finding like understanding and knowing your horse's body, what is a weakness, and recognizing that, and then what's actually soreness that needs some treatment from the vet. I think that's always something to balance, right? And like we can't call the vet every single time it's not going great, but we actually sometimes have to call the vet if it's like, oh, he's always bucking into the canter. Okay, well that's probably his back, or whatever. So I think that's always something interesting also to like find the balance there. Number 9, a lot of you in the academy, we talk a lot about school trot. And I think that's interesting too, like, and you can go into the academy and find those videos about the school trot and learn more about that. But it's like, what's the difference of school trot versus just a slow and uninteresting trot? The whoomp, whoomp, whoomp is the real giveaway. And so you got to check out the academy. And all the videos in there, and I think there's lectures in there also about, I'm sure there's lectures in there about school trot. But again, like not all slow trot is school trot, right? And we got to think about why we do school trot. We do school trot to teach the horse how to coil his joints when his hind feet make contact with the ground. The joints have to coil, and the school trot forces him to do that. So he learns how to like coil into his joints so he can eventually like pop up. He can go more forward. He can have more float. He can develop an international trot. He can learn to swing and be fancy. But many times that comes from the school trot, which is not all slow trot. Okay? We can use slow trot for other reasons, and we'll get into that another time. But not all slow trot, school trot. Number 10. This is also interesting. Very similar to the school trot idea, but the balance we always need to find too is the balance between sitting, like the horse is sitting down and like collecting and taking weight versus propulsion and pushing, right? Like we always talk about, like extended canter needs to live in your collected canter and collected canter still needs to live in your extended canter, right? So there's always, again, that like amazing balance between them. And so even in the collected trot and medium trots and extended trots, like what is that balance? Or when you're working on your like big swing in the trot, right? Like what is the balance of him coiling the hocks, closing his pelvis, sitting down, and then what is the other side of that, which is like jack in the box, like out of his joints and swinging up off the ground, you know? And so when you're working on developing the gaits, right? One of my trainers once said to me, like 90% of trainers teach horses things and 10% teach them how to move different. Be the 10%, right? Like teach the horse how to use his body in the most efficient, and over time, gradually, gymnastically building him up to be a fantastic athlete. And that makes him sound, right? That's all what we want. Doesn't matter if we're going to go to the Olympics or never go to a horse show ever. And it doesn't matter. We all want sound, strong, happy, confident partners, So finding that balance between collecting and propulsion, I think, is also something fun. Something that was very dear, number 11, is student versus teacher. So I think it's really important that we all seek growth. We never arrive at being the perfect rider, the perfect person, the perfect spouse, the perfect boss, the perfect mother, daughter, whatever, sister, right? Like we never arrive there. So life is kind of constantly giving us different lessons. And I think it's important to find your balance between being the student and being the teacher, right? Like, of course, everyone who sits in the saddle is the horse trainer because, like it or not, you're training that horse at that moment, right? If you're the parent, you're the teacher, right? So we all have a teacher role in our life, but then it's also important to be like, am I enough of a student? Like Isabel Worth still has eyes on the ground, and takes lessons. Michael had Monica come over, right? Every top person still gets lessons because we all are striving towards that perfect place, which of course we never arrive. But there's always this, we could do it better, right? And even if it's the same stuff that we keep hearing, it's you hear it differently and it means something. It comes in a different context, like, oh, so that's what you meant by be quieter with my aids. Gosh, wow. I mean, still too loud, right? 25, 30 years later, I'm still too loud, right? Until it's just art, right? But we're all on that place, and I, even when something difficult happens in your life, one of my favorite questions is to ask, like, what does life need from me right now, right? What can I learn as the student from this cancer diagnosis, this loss, this frustration? Like, how am I handling this? Can I respond better? All the things. So finding your balance between being the student and being the teacher. Number 12. Being positive, but not fake, right? So and not real, right? Like, how are you? Great. Everything's great. I'm always great. Everything's great, And it's like, it's and people are always like, are you real, right? Like, because I'm a very positive person. And I'm proud that I'm never fake. It's not like I'm not like this all the time. Like I'm enthusiastic and yeah, can I get annoyed about stuff? Like for sure. But it's not like you want to be authentic and you want to like be real. And if you're not great, then don't say you're great, right? Be like, I am struggling today with whatever, but I'm working on getting a smile on my face, we have to be real, but I think it's important to work on being as positive as we can. I'm a very glass half full kind of person, so it comes pretty easy for me to be like, there's so much rain, but we needed the water, and it's, we always joke that like, even if the glass is less than half full, I'm like, oh, look, there's some water in here. Great. It's great. And so I know that's like hard for other people. And I think it's really important to honor how we feel about things and to attempt to be as positive as we can and see the silver lining as often as we can, but not put on a false way. Like even if you're having trouble with your horse and your trainer, right? Like discuss it, talk about it. And bringing things open to discuss is like never the wrong idea, right? Like you should always put things in the open, get things off your chest, share, ask questions, work it out, Number 13 kind of goes a little bit along this about being truthful, but finding your balance not to be hurtful. So I think it's also interesting to always tell the truth. I think it's important to show up, tell the truth. Don't get attached to the truth, But I think it's also about how you say things. I think it's important to say the truth. But I think it's also important that you need to say it in a way that's palatable for the person hearing it, which also is like horses. That goes a little bit back to like leadership versus being bossy. Like for my horses, like I'm going to sometimes have to hit them with the whip to say, hey, shape up, get your butt going, you're not responding to my right leg. Here's the stick, like wake up, I got to follow up the aid. But then I think it's really important that then you got to teach the horse to seek the yes, right? Or like to be honest, but not like super negative about it, or how you say it. Like there's a lot of ways to say you need to become a better rider, and it's not by being condescending and mean and rude. And, we all need to have enough respect for ourselves to not tolerate that behavior because it's actually not necessary. It's not necessary to get yelled at about not being able to keep your hands still. Like you're really doing your best to keep your hands still, right? And it's not like I can't hear you. I'm not deaf. I actually don't know how to do that. So maybe you could help me how I should do that, So again, like that I really make a mantra in my life to be super truthful, even if it's like, hey, like that hurt my feelings. I heard what you said. This is what I heard. Maybe that's not what you meant, but that's what I heard, right? Because what people say and what they mean and what you hear and what you understand can be like 4 different things, So it's really important to tell the truth. And even like from a teacher perspective, when I'm telling the truth to my horses, hey, you're being kind of lazy. My rider, hey, that was the wrong reaction there. We have to like call them out on it, but we have to be kind while we do it. Ooh, this is a big one. And I only have like 15 more minutes, so I gotta like speed up. Number 14. This is a good one. Being self-critical versus shaming and negative self-talk. Let's just let that one just fall right into us right now, right? Because we don't get better if we don't say, hey, I need to really get my leg quiet, or like, God, I just keep hanging on this left rein. Like it's normal, completely normal to be frustrated with like, if I hear my teacher tell me one more time to do XYZ, gosh, why can't I get this? It's totally normal to be frustrated. And actually, I find myself like from frustration builds motivation for me. And I'm like, next lesson, I am not going to hear him tell me to put my left foot forward or whatever it is, right? And so I think it's important to be like, we do need to be not like critical, but we need to be like, hey, did I do that? Did I do that well? Did I handle that well? Did I handle this thing at work well? Did I handle my child in the best way I could? This discussion with my husband, whatever, right? Like, I think it's important to ask the question, like, could I have done that better? And, sometimes the answer is no, I think you did a great job. Yay me. You that was a difficult situation. You did the best you could with what you knew. That was a good job. Did we learn something from it? Probably. Can I do it maybe a little bit better next time? Perhaps. But instead of being like, oh, I'm so stupid, or I'm so fat, or I'm so out of shape, and I'm just never going to get it, right? Like, we have to be really, really careful what we speak to ourselves inside our own little head. Because between me, myself, and I, that is the closest, deepest relationship I will ever have with anyone. And if you've ever recovered from something very serious, you know the deep healing comes from deep within you, right? And so that you got to treat that like it's your best friend, and be careful to not speak mean to yourself, right? And I know it's hard, but like the shame, you want to really like unpack that and like think about like where that might be coming from your whatever deep hurts, old hurts, work on being able to let go of those things, because it's important to be self-critical about like creating improvement, but then it's very easy for it to become negative self-talk. So I think that's a really powerful thing to find your balance. Like, oh, I could do that better, but like I don't suck, right? And I think what's interesting about really being able to differentiate, when you do a lot of meditation, it's so much about like these emotions and these thoughts like float by like a cloud. Like you're the sky and these thoughts and emotions float by like a cloud. And sometimes they're stormy and yucky clouds. Sometimes they're nice fluffy white clouds. But they're all just thoughts, right? And so we can't really like attach to them. We have to like notice that they're floating by and just let them keep going, right? And know that the true self isn't the cloud. It isn't the emotion you're feeling. Like you've got to keep finding who know thyself. Like, who am I really, and what is all this extra clouds and going floating by? Because the negative self-talk, really is, those are bad clouds, and you just got to let those float by and get connected to who you truly are, And of course, this comes back down to, being able to strive for more. Number 15 is pushing yourself versus self-love and care. And of course, no great achievement comes with no effort, right? We always have to like put effort in. Like I picked up and flew 5 horses to Europe and trained and, really changed a lot of things about a lot of things. Cancer was a real catalyst for me to be like, I better get living my life and I better create what I want it to look like, because you just don't know when that's over or that when that's going to be not possible, And so with wanting to achieve great things and be a great rider or a great trainer or great everything, we have to, again, ask ourselves, did I do a good job? Back to the self-critical piece. Surrounding yourself with love, letting go of the things you don't love, about it. And then also, really taking care of yourself, like finding out what brings you love and joy and what fills you up when you're feeling empty. And getting to know yourself, and being able to strive and push, but also the importance of that rest day, right? Like muscles work the same, right? Like we can't just like go to the gym and like build, build, build. Like there has to be some type of recovery. And so you got to find that ability to emotionally recover, physically recover from these things that you're working towards or working through, and allow yourself the time to recover from these things, and that's really that balance again of finding, I want to push myself to achieve great things, but I want to honor myself and make sure I am feeling full and ready to, face the next challenge. So I hope you guys found that fun, and thank you for listening. And I have to go now because we have a lecture in 9 minutes. I'm sure Jillian and Chris are like, she needs to get on the Zoom call. But you know me, get chatty. So anyway, that was fun to discuss balance. I'm sure there's like 1,000 categories we can talk about where to find balance. These were just a fun 15. So I hope you guys found that interesting thoughts to chew on. And I hope to see you again soon and make it a great day. All right, bye.